Can I ask, if you had your time again, would if you had your time again, would you marry him? If you had your time again, you say you pick students who are in the second year, so they'd had experience of paper and they'd probably had attachment to that. If you had your time again, would you pick students who didn't have the attachment?
No, I picked the second years. What you don't realise, we actually, the first group we did was first years. So the initial group was a first year group in Chelmsford of 30 first year student nurses, and that proved really problematic because they didn't understand the practice document and they're very junior students, and I think for the initial trial going out they didn't have the confidence to actually tell their mentors what to do. So it was a very active decision to do second years. So not the first years for that reason, and of course not the third years because they're too far on to actually having developed it. So second years, my beautiful second year students were actually, it was a very carefully thought out decision, and we would use second years again.
So the plan now is to, we've had the second year students in Cambridge as the next stage of that really, because the 30 student pilot enabled us to see all sorts of potential difficulties, and you don't want to do that with a large number of students. The second year students have helped us refine the system, and as Emma was saying, make suggestions as well about how the system can be improved, as indeed have colleagues from practice. So now it'll go out to the whole of the second year, but students who are currently using it will continue to use it. It is our plan until it goes out across the whole course, Patrick. And I was interested in what Fiona was saying about picking up momentum and how that linked with what you were saying about super users, Charlotte. And of course, our sense is this needs to happen really. The larger the number of students and mentors, the more we're going to need to capitalise on, you know, we're not training everyone afresh really.
It's actually moving from a perception of it being a pilot to an improvement project. And actually there is a struggle. First group of students, you know, why us, why as a pilot? But it's not a pilot, it's actually an improvement project. And with anything, if you're doing a major improvement, you actually don't do everybody at once. You do start and you develop and you get bigger and bigger until you've got the critical mass and everybody goes. And that's just how you would manage a project like this.
One of the questions that we have for our project at the moment is, you know, we're using computers because of the issue of we have students within our areas who have lower social deprivation, so we weren't able to make that statement that they had to be a bring-your-own device yet. But that's where we'd like to go long term. And I know you have digital devices on the cohorts you've got. Have you got a long-term plan for sustainability of that? Because we'd like to learn.
Ultimately, we are going to have to go to bring your own devices. I think there are very few universities that can afford for all students. It's been useful in the learning process, and we are fortunate to be able to fund that for next year. Beyond that, it will be bring your own devices, but we now have quite a lot of devices that we've been able to purchase. So what I envisage is we will have a bank of tablets that we can give to the students who aren't able to purchase them. So, and a lot of students do have their own device, and I think they prefer their own than the ones we give them, and then we will just give them to those who actually have a need.
Do you know, and interestingly, what we have found is that actually some students have been using their mobile phones to actually fill the assessment. So, you know, I think students are usually quite creative as well. I think we're lucky at Addenbrooke's, we've got the IT resource.
Is there an opportunity to record feedback from service users and carers?
We do actually do that. So all our students do 2 service user feedback as an absolute minimum, and that's recorded. And what they do is they give the tablets to their mentor or the computer, and the mentor actually fills in, just as when it was the paper, the mentor actually filled it in the paper on behalf of the service users. There's also all manner of other things that we're actually, I'm hoping to move through to next year. There's things like OSCEs. So, you know, if you train nurses, you have manual handling and basic life support. To do an OSCE form is a really useful thing, to have it recorded. And my idea for the first years is that we actually get them using it for OSCE peer assessments in the skills labs before they go out into practice, so they get used to using the tablets to complete a simple OSCE assessment and syncing it, and then actually take the tablets into practice.
And can I ask a second question really cheaply? After the student qualifies, what happens to the to their record? Does it
stays there,
forward?
doesn't it? It stays there, and is it 20 years or something?
Can they access it and can they
Yes.
take that with them?
Yes,
Because
so-
I was thinking of trusts and preceptorship and
Yeah.
maybe the trust wanted to use
so
the same sort of
What
thing.
did I actually say? It states on my labs presentation, because I'm going to show you something my showcase which actually demonstrates it. But that is accessible for 20 years. So, and of course, they probably would have burned their practice document by then. And you actually do get students needing it at some point and they can't get it.
Sorry, I won't need the mic. Can I just ask a question about the process of how the mentors get their login access? And if they're not on the hub and spoke model like they are in Scotland, how long do they actually have access to that information? I'm just thinking if they don't go back to that placement, would they still actually able to see how that student progresses?
I can tell you how we do it. For mentor access, you can register the mentors with the student before they go into practice. However, I think we've both found that this is actually unmanageable because we don't know who the mentors are going to be until the students turn up in practice. So effectively, the moment the mentors actually complete the first form, they get sent a username and email address. However, what I've done is I've created registration forms. They aren't necessary, but the reason I've done that is because if you have more than one mentor, you can get all of them on the systems, and you might have a mentor, co-mentor, you have a sign-off mentor, you might have a trainee mentor. And the other reason is we had problems getting our mentorship details, checking they were live mentors. So in fact, I get them, the very first thing they have to do is complete the mentor registration, which then collects the mentor details in a spreadsheet for me. So
do that for the students?
Yeah, so the student hands their tablets over, so they can either do it on the computer or the tablet. Student hands their tablet over. First form is mentor registration. They fill it in, sync the device when they get home. The mentor then receives an email with a username and password. If they do it on the computer, they instantly get that username and password. So it works very effectively. So you don't need to know who the mentor is. If the mentor actually goes off sick or changes, they can just fill in another registration form. And there's no limit to how many of those you can have.
I'll speak now, it's fine. Any examples you can give, like in case that students say that they lost their tablets on their way home or they couldn't sync when they type something?
Okay, I've had one student who lost their tablet, who actually was one of Patrick Webb's student who lost it before they even hit practice, actually. So they didn't actually lose any. So we've only had one student. In terms of losing assessments, I'll be honest with you, there are 3 ways that you could lose an assessment. Way number 1 is you press the back button, or if you're on the screen on the computer, if you press the back button and you haven't saved, like anything, it will lose it for you. Way number 2 is if you delete the app from your tablet. So we've sent red messages out to all our students, and we did have a couple of students who had problems with syncing. One of the biggest problems we had with students understanding there's a difference between having a Wi-Fi signal and being connected to Wi-Fi, and then they thought there was a problem. And also there was an error message which caused confusion, which they've changed in version 6, which said my progress has stopped working, which made the students think the app had gone down, which made them delete the app. And so it's not a student, it's actually, you can understand very logically how it happened. So we've got the company to change error messages, we've sent out warnings. And the way that I think was the biggest issue for our students, and again it's been solved now, was that if you saved a document as a draft and you opened it, you had to make sure that you resaved it. There's an option to cancel this attempt. If you cancel this attempt, then it actually doesn't remember anything that you've actually previously saved. And so there's now a second screen warning. Are you sure you want to do this? This will actually prevent, and that'll stop it. And there was also a lot of students who thought they'd lost assessments, but they hadn't. It works, if you're not connected to the Wi-Fi, it will move to the outbox, the same as with an email. And then, so we actually we're finding assessments in outboxes and drafts. So quite a lot of them we were able to find for the students. But I think those were the 3 ways. So we know what they are now, so we can educate. And actually, error message has been changed to be helpful. Students know not to delete the app, and the extra warning will prevent the students, hopefully, from doing the 3rd. Yeah.
And I think the important thing here for us, and I can't remember if it was Lee or Fiona who said, you know, my knowledge map don't give you the system, then walk away and leave you. You know, there are other systems out there, but certainly the reason we have found this system useful is partly because it does what we need it to do, and the other reason is just that. Over the last 2 years, where ourselves and other HEIs, such as colleagues in Scotland, have been working on this, each time we come up with something in the system that can cause a significant problem, you know, we have an ongoing conversation with the company. And the solutions are found and implemented, which is why Sean's now talking about version 6. So, you know, from my perspective, in terms of strategically managing something across a faculty or even across a university, I would say it's very important, really, to know what kind of support any software platform is going to give you afterwards, and our experience with this.
And of course, you won't have the same problems as we had, because we've had them and they've stopped them.
No.
Yeah.
But I think what is helpful, and that's why it's really helpful to have you know, have conferences like this, is that we can share across the patch then, and it'll just get better and better. That's our view, really, as more and more of us use it, and inevitably come up against, you know, different cohorts of students with different requirements. So the system, I believe, will get better and better.
Yeah, I just thought like to mention that kind of rapport, you know, with the customers is what we really like, you know, because then we can actually understand and improve the tool for everybody.
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah.
Say, at the moment, like, we are looking to give tablets to students, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you have any policy on replacing these tablets, broken tablets, lost tablets?
We got them to sign them, a sign-up policy which says if they lose it, they replace it.
They replace it.
With my extremely cynical head on, when you have students who are failing in placement, are they the ones most likely to accidentally delete their record?
What I say to my mentors is, if you are doing a cause for concern or you're writing something that the student won't want to send, do it on the computer, and then you can send it yourself without the students having to get in the middle. So I definitely say, particularly if they're doing a cause for concern, don't trust that the student is going to send that. Even if the student is a very honest student, if somebody has written one of those, I may be hesitant to send it or may be delayed. So if they do it on the student's computer account, they can press the send button and it's gone. And once it's gone, they can't delete it, they can't remove it, it's there in perpetuity.
Can I just add, on paper, they equally could lose their books, but they don't. So
well, we find that they do. I have in those dogs who practical assessment doctors. They do not have a taste for ones that have passed.
we don't seem to have that problem, touch wood.
Well, I think it's the other way around, because they used to remove those pages from our documents, so you go page 14, page 17.
We always tell our mentors not
well,
to
they can't do that now.
Students if they're failing.
Yeah, they can't do that now. I think that's actually tightens that.
I think what we found is the cause for concern is now with the practice assessment books, where we've got on paper, and I know Leslie would echo this, and all the actually the Link Champions will, is we found that the cause for concerns weren't in the practice books. So when, you know, sign-off mentors were looking in the third year, all the practice books, those were missing. So in terms of a sign-off mentor being able to look at progress, any issues, so this has helped to address some of that.
So you have a cause for concern sheet your mentors do.
Yes.
Everywhere doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So it's about looking at different ways that this would work with different practical assessment processes nationally.
Yeah, and that certainly works really well.
And I mean, I think what you were saying, Charlotte, was it's kind of facilitated causes for concern being, you know, managed more speedily, really, for us, you know.
There's also a remediation workflow as well, so that you can actually recommend somebody for remediation, you know, and spot that really early on and share it with colleagues.
I think there's a question down the front.
It's more of a comment about the relationship with my knowledge map, and like yourself, I've got the strategic responsibility. And one of the conversations that had to be had at university level was the reassurance of the after sales service, if you like, and the ongoing relationship, because the IT department were very nervous about if this collapses, the students don't see that it's an external company, the students just retaliate in the MSS that IT systems are rubbish because it falls down. However, from what we've experienced and some of the changes and upgrades, any issues are resolved much more speedily than our IT department resolve issues.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
When your students are enrolled on this system, do they use the same username and password that they use for all other access within your system?
What I'd say is enrolling students is very easy. We just enroll them in a spreadsheet. In cohorts, you upload the spreadsheet and that goes on, and it automatically sends them an automatic username and password, and they can change that. So what I do say to my students though is actually do it something memorable, but keep it different from your ordinary one, and there are reasons for that. Because they're working with their mentor, so their mentor may actually see what username and password they're actually putting in close proximity. And sometimes what they want to do is, the mentors are fed back, is they actually want to complete the assessment, write some in, get some ideas in there, and then bring the student actually in. And you complete the assessment on the student's account, because it's a student's assessment. The mentor account, you can only see the completed assessment. So the students, the mentor may log into the student's account, complete something, get the students in and have a discussion about it. So I think it's useful to have a different username and password from the ordinary account. But and actually they can change it between mentors, so that then mentors can't go back and see their account. But yeah.
Oh yes.
Sorry. So based on that then, how does that integrate with your university systems in terms of pulling in sort of pass marks, or depending on how you use it across into if you're setting up, if you're dragging student information from a spreadsheet, they're obviously different servers. Do they integrate with the back-end systems then? Or?
We haven't integrated it with anything at the moment, because, and that's what we're beginning to look at now. And the reason for that is, if you work, I don't know what your university is like, actually integrating with IT systems, it would have held us up by at least 5 years, I think, in being able to actually do this. So, in fact, it would have been a small project, and I don't think they would have let us do it if they'd have had to be involved. So, no, they wouldn't have let us do it, to be honest with you. So we've been able to run it completely independent, but we're looking at those integrations.
I was waiting to do it unless it is integrated.
Yeah. I just tell you, my IT department told me not to do it, and I did it anyway.
But I think I could reiterate, I was told I wasn't an IT project manager, and why was I doing this? So I would reiterate that.
We do have models for integrating into systems. So each customer is different, and whatever their requirement is, we can use things like Active Directory and so on to pull in a live database, and we customise it according to what you require, really.
So on the template that someone put up on, sorry, I can't remember who it was, and it had all the different assessments on, and it had a section on about EU requirements and things. So all of that information about they've completed all of that then has to be taken from that and then inputted into a different system.
No, we don't. I mean, the thing is, you don't want to be moving stuff out, so it's stored on My Progress. So it's stored, and if you want the results, you bring out a single spreadsheet which has actually got all the results of the students for that assessment on, and then you can take that spreadsheet and put it on your mark sheet or whatever you actually want to do with it. And I'm sure there's actually a way of integrating that effectively, but you don't have to go into every student's account. And what we're not doing is taking those assessments and putting them somewhere else. They are stored on My Progress. That's where they're stored. That's where they're actually left. You can search them there. You can file them there. You can actually. It would be absolutely madness. But we have our student record and things. But I think this is where we're actually going now, is looking how we make that more efficient. But it's not been onerous in terms of it's just getting a single mark in at the moment.
Also, I think if you compare it to where we were before, so clearly, if an integrated system is required by your organisation, then so be it. But before we were dealing with very large paper-based files, moving them between you know, several campuses, you know,
photocopying them, scanning them in. Couldn't
So
search them.
for us, by comparison, having it as an e-system, even if it's not integrated with our IT system. And at the moment in Anglia, we're also looking at our kind of virtual learning environment and our IT system per se, including our IT system in terms of managing our placement allocation, etc. So we do have a number of systems that we're trying to streamline. So that's where we're at the moment.
We're from Suffolk, and in Suffolk we're implementing a different way of mentoring. So we're looking at like student-led mentoring. So the mentor doesn't actually always work hand in hand with the students. We get lots of different people that do it. Is there an option then to have more than just the mentor or the co-mentor or a training mentor to be able to input into the system, that you don't actually have to keep registering each time, or is it something that they would have to do?
The reason you don't have to register at all. So, and I've done a bit of porcupines to my students, put your hands over your ears now, you don't actually hear this, is that completing a form actually registers the person and they get an email with that assessment. So you don't need to register. The reason I register is because for the mentor details, because I want to collect those mentor details. And also it actually works with the mentor's brains. How do I get my thing I filled in the registration form? And also if you don't have the registration form, only the person who's completed that form will have access to it. So if I complete that assessment, I get access to that student's account. But if I haven't completed it, I don't have it. Whereas if you have a registration form, but this is kind of ways you can discuss how you actually want to set your system up. For us, having the registration forms work, but they're not necessary.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about the actual inputting of any kind of feedback or something like that into the...
Well, what I'd actually say, we have an interprofessional feedback form, so where we have interprofessional team actually feedback on our students, and those people don't have to register. And I've sent that form out, so they get an email, but they don't get system access, and that's just an option in actually sending the form out. So you can pick and choose what you do for each individual form.
Any other questions before we...
I just wanted to ask quickly, when is the plan to roll out to the midwifery students? Because it sounds wonderful. We want it, please.
You want it noted. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to say, I'm volunteering a cohort.
I don't know about that, but there is a plan to roll it out to the midwifery students as well. But
a lot of nursing schools do start with the midwives, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, like the British Army sends the Gurkhas in, they think midwives will do a really good job.
I'm not sure about that.
but no, we've got lots of people. In fact, this afternoon, Jackie will be talking about UCLAN's use of it with midwives and as well.
I mean, my own personal vision is that within Anglia and indeed in professional education per se, any curriculum that has a substantial component of practice learning in it has the potential to benefit from a system such as this. One of the points I've heard made over the years while I've been working in professional education has been around the validity and reliability and quality of practice learning. So one of the comments aimed at universities, for instance, is that we spend lots of time looking at, pedagogy around theoretical learning, theoretical assessment, but of course in professional courses, be it nursing, midwifery, social work, whatever, practice learning and practice assessment is a substantive component of the curriculum. My interest in this comes from all of the benefits that I can see around enhancing practice assessment and what that does therefore in terms of the validity of making judgments about professional competency. But also it's very heartening to hear, from a student perspective and from placement partners, all of the other, the other sort of positives we've seen in this. And I hope we're also being upfront about the challenges as well. But undoubtedly already, I mean, we collected data, as indeed have our colleagues from Scotland and elsewhere, and you can see actually if you look at the balance of challenges, how many emails with problems you receive over a period of time versus the kind of charts that Sean was showing you in terms of the analytics, that the benefits are very sound. And for me another one really is about, we've heard the term Big Brother used, haven't we? And of course there's a sort of nervousness about that kind of concept. But actually, the only reason I want to know if a practice assessment document hasn't been looked at until towards the end of the placement is so that we can offer the support to the student and or mentor and or whatever to enable that assessment to be done more effectively, formative and summatively. So, but for me, I would like to see them all something similar more professional education.
But I think it has to be said as well that the validity and the reliability of the assessment process doesn't just rest on the book being filled in, because a lot of people are quite obsessed with the book being filled in, whereas it's actually looking at the students and what they've done in reality with the patient.
Which is why, sorry Sharon, I'll respond and then I'll which is why the analytics is important. It's not about the book being filled in, it's about knowing how people are engaging with the process, really. Sorry, Sean.
I think an important thing that we need to do next year moving forward, and I think Francis highlighted this, it's about the tutor engagement with the system. It's no good as the tutors having access to the students' records if they don't do something with that. So actually, that's something I think we need to work on for next year, is getting the tutors familiar with how they can engage with their students and benefit their students from looking at their records as they're actually going on, without trying to make onerous amounts of work for those tutors at the same time. So it's getting that balance right, is how this can help them support their students and them engaging it, because otherwise it gets pointless.
I think you're right. There is something about it isn't just about filling in the book, and it is the quality of that interaction, those learning opportunities and experience in practice. But I can think of a student at the moment that I know is struggling, but actually what I'm trying to encourage him to do is to use the reflective log, and he has after a particularly challenging event, and he's reflected really well. And actually you can see, although he's struggling in terms of what he thinks he isn't learning, he is actually learning quite a lot, and that's helping to capture so that we can do something with that.
So from your perspective as the practice person manager,
yes.
that term you use, how does it help you to support your mentors in that process?
So in terms of, because I've got an overview, we can look at what the mentors are writing, and and the quality of what they're writing as well. Now, we work quite closely with our link champion, so our practice education meetings, we look at moderation in practice. So we can go out to those mentors and we can give them some support. And we are a large organisation, we've got over 800 mentors, and that's hard to try and see everyone, but what this is helping us to do is to focus that support where we need to. So because we've got that overview, we can look at the quality of the documentation, and that gives us kind of, sort of areas where we need to focus and mentors we need to support. But I have to say our mentors are quite good about contacting us and saying, I need help. So we have that relationship, that very much that open relationship, where mentors can say, can you come and sit in with an assessment with me? I need some help. So that relationship is key. I don't think this takes the place of any of the other work streams we have in place to support. I think what it does is it enhances all of those and just helps to streamline a little bit better.
Okay, thank you very much.